I am so excited to be talking about history today. What does that mean? Okay, I'm Dr. Lilach and I'm so excited that you're joining me for this live video about the H.E.A.R retreat, H.E.A.R. Every day on Monday for the next 4 weeks, we are going to be talking about a different element of the H.E.A.R retreat, H.E.A.R. And today we're talking about history. Next week, you're going to want to come back for next week's live, also here on Facebook, about emotions. And the week after that, we're talking about advocacy, and lastly, about reconnecting. Why are we doing this? What is this whole thing about? I am on a mission. If you have been following, and if you know about the All About Audiology podcast, you know that I am on a mission to help parents of deaf and hard of hearing children connect with their children and get some support on this journey. Lots of times people are just thrown into audiology and a lot of questions, a lot of thoughts, and oh my goodness, like appointments and specialists, and it just kind of you get thrown in all at once. So the podcast, the All About Audiology podcast, the Instagram posts, all the things I am putting out to help and serve, all the resources, have really, really helped to think about some of the topics that are connected to, related, adjacent to the audiology topics specifically, that are really about the heart, the parents and their children. And so I'm really, really happy you're here. If you are a parent to a deaf or hard of hearing child, or a professional working with these awesome kiddos, I am welcoming you. And today, jumping right in, we're talking about the H. The H is history. So when you say history in a medical setting, okay, you're really talking about, like, what was the birth history? Tell me about what happened when the baby was born, or any family history of hearing loss. You might ask about the history of, did they have ear infections as a child, if you're speaking to someone older, right? So there's all of these, you think of the history in the medical sense, it's kind of like, what's the story of, were you in the hospital? What medications are you taking? That kind of medical history. But today I'm talking about a different kind of history that, okay, so click something. Okay. Well, today we're talking about a different kind of history. And this is the history that we all carry with us of the things that have happened to us in our lives, things that we've experienced, emotions that we've had, challenges that we have overcome, those things that we take with us that are part of our life, they're part of our heart and our body and our history. And you might be like, why is this audiologist talking to me about hard things that I've gone through? Well, because it really affects everything. It affects how you behave, how you show up in the world, and your ability also to connect. And a lot of times, what I've seen as an audiologist is that many of the challenges that parents face are also related to their own history and their own challenges when they've had to deal with medical professionals or in an advocacy setting, with figures of authority in school, and with like trying to advocate for accessibility and therapies and accommodations. And something that gets in the way of being that really rah-rah advocate is some of the things that have happened in the past. So I want to tell you guys a little story that is kind of a famous joke, if you will. It starts off as a joke, but it actually is very insightful. And it's about somebody who says that they're always really, really, really scared of the boogeyman hiding under the bed. And every night they're staying in fear in their bed, and they're so afraid that something or someone is under the bed that's going to harm them. Even though they look under and there's nothing there, they get back in bed and it scares them. And so they go for one kind of talk therapy, and for years and years they discuss what are the reasons that they what do they think? What are they worried about? What are their fears? When did they start having the thoughts about this boogeyman? And, really talking about it week after week, but still the person goes to sleep and they are afraid. And then they go to a different kind of therapist and they talk with them for many years. And the end of the story is that one day they go to a friend and the friend says to them, I have a great idea. Why don't you just cut the legs off of the bed? Cut the legs off the bed and your mattress will be on the floor and therefore you won't have it under the bed. No under the bed, no boogeyman. Problem solved. And for many years I knew the story that it ended right here, and it was kind of funny, it was kind of a joke, and it was also kind of a way of looking at therapy and looking at, the whole journey of analyzing, reflecting, journaling, thinking about what you've gone through, and kind of the derisive light, like, why would you do that? Why would you waste all that time? Why would you just talk and talk and talk and not get anywhere? Well, that's kind of how I knew this story for many years. And then years and years later, I told this story to my therapist, actually. And they said, well, what do you think about that story? As all good therapists are known to do, to have you reflect on what this means to you. And I kind of was upset about it and explained that, well, that just because you cut the legs off doesn't mean you're not still afraid of what was underlying the fears of the boogeyman. Well, yeah, they really agreed, and they said, maybe the next you're going to be afraid of monsters in the closet, and if you get rid of your closet, then maybe you'll start being afraid of something coming through the vent. Right? So sometimes we do that. We say, I'm facing a problem, and this thing right in front of me is the problem. Like, trying to figure out, should we or should we not do cochlear implants is the problem of my parenting relationship with my child, for example. But is that the problem? Because once you'll make a decision one way or another and kind of navigate that process, then there will be another thing. and like life will continue with all of its challenges. So that's why one of the tools that is so valuable is looking back. It is kind of taking a reflection, looking in the rearview mirror to see what's behind. What did we experience? What did we pass through? And in every culture, in every tradition, we have holidays, we have memories, we have photo books, we have mementos, we have heirlooms, all things from our past, from our heritage that we take with us. Some of it is very beautiful and meaningful and supportive. And some of it also isn't that. Is maybe also harmful or confusing or invalidating. Or it helped at the time of those generations, but is no longer serving you in your life for yourself. And so I think that we start kind of, instead of just jumping in to, let's talk about my method and my H.E.A.R retreat and helping the families that I've worked with, I don't just jump in and say, okay, let's solve all the problems. Let's go. We're going to punch here and punch there and write this email and write this report and help you to understand this and help you to understand that. Because we are going to do all those things, but there is kind of this other thing that we can do first. That's why I put it right at the beginning, H for history of the H.E.A.R. And we're going to look back a little bit. So I invite you to think of something that you are going through right now, something that's really weighing heavily on your heart, something that's maybe keeping you up at night or, keeping your thoughts occupied or taking up all of your time. The thing that you are worried about, that you are anxious about. For many people that I've spoken with, it's about their child's ability to make friends, their social opportunities, or about their child's access to education or their language development. These are really, really big questions. These are really big, important parts of a parent's supportive journey to their child. But I also really want to invite you and support you in doing that kind of search, doing that kind of exploration of what you think about education, accessibility, access to healthcare, all of those, whatever issue you're looking at, how that's come up for you in your life in the past. And thinking a little bit about how what happened before is affecting you now. Okay, and I want to tell you that PTSD I think most of us have heard about PTSD and how that shows up for many people who have experienced something extremely traumatic that was very, very difficult for them, that they may, hello, oh, bless you. Thanks, sweetie. You want to sit with me? Okay, well, we'll have someone join us a little bit. Oh, you sit right here, okay? And you can listen to. Yes, got it. All right. So when we talk about PTSD, post-traumatic. Yes.
Are you talking to yourself?
No, I'm talking to a lot of people on the internet right now. Yeah, I'm teaching. You can listen to. Okay, so when we talk about PTSD, what we're understanding and what we have come as a culture to appreciate is this exact connection between the things that have happened to us and the way that we're able to handle things that are happening now. And so I wanted to share a story from one of the podcast guests who will be coming up pretty soon. Oh, you have to stay on the couch. Here, here's your book. She shared that although she is now in her 40s, every time that she goes to a doctor, she is very alert. She is very anxious. It takes her time before and after to kind of resettle, and that she never kind of really understood that feeling. But then one time she was at an ENT, and the ENT was about to look in her ear with the otoscope with the light. And as he was like kind of coming up from a little bit from behind, she kind of flinched and moved in a certain way. And this doctor stopped and asked her, "Are you okay? Did you have a bad experience with an ENT at one point, maybe as a child?" And she started to think back, and she realized years and years and years later that actually she does remember something that was very, very scary, that she had tubes put in her ears without anesthesia at a time when they would do it, just in office. And she remembers being held down and screaming and crying and not being able to help herself in any way. And she says, "I think I was 5 years old." So I think the important message here is that even young children, even 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds, and even people who don't have conscious memories of something, it still does affect you later on in adulthood. However, she described that when this doctor kind of took the moment to pause and say, "I'm going to tell you every single thing I do. I'm going to look in your ear now. Are you ready?" And kind of changed the way that he was behaving to the patient in response to seeing her flinch. And you'll hear that on an upcoming episode about more on how the history, in that case, medical history, but also history of a traumatic experience, came into play. So I'm wondering what are you thinking about this? What's coming up for you when we talk about the history of your experiences, you as an adult who is now the parent, or if you have any thoughts about this idea that we carry the things from our own past and also from our ancestral past, from our parents, from our grandparents, and from the generations that came before us. Many times what they did to survive continues in us, even when we are not in those stressful situations. Sweetie, you need to sit down, okay? Not now, honey. Very sweet. I'm happy you're joining me. All right, so those are some of the things I wanted to bring up to you and tell you that we're going to be talking more about this within the H.E.A.R retreat, which is a 7-day free retreat starting on April 12th. You can sign up at allaboutaudiology.com/retreat. You'll have the link here in the description, and you can also message me with any questions. I will see you again next week, where we're going to be diving into the H.E.A.R of the H.E.A.R retreat. We're going to talk about emotions and how the emotions of this entire experience come into play for you and for your child and for all the people in your family, the members all together, and dive into this a little bit more. I'm really, really looking forward. And for those of you who are here watching this till the end, I would love for you to leave a comment here, whether you're watching this later on in the replay. What kind of experiences do you think that your past come up when you're dealing with the challenges that you're facing now with your child? And starting to make some of those connections between what happened before to what's happening now is kind of the first step in tackling them. And I've got little feet over here joining me for this live. I am so grateful to be connected to you. I can't wait to see you in the retreat. We're going to be in a nice group on Zoom, so I'll be able to see all of you and answer individual questions and go really deep into some of these topics. I really just one more time want to put out to you that there is so many different elements that come together that as an audiologist I see the implications when there is a hard of hearing child in the family, how that affects their schooling, how that affects their relationships, how it affects your relationship to your child. And at the end of the day, that is the goal for all of us, is that our children should feel safe, should feel home. We should be able to communicate with them. They should be able to come to us with their concerns and worries. And when there are these kind of other elements, then we have to be open to tackling them in a way that supports them and ourselves. We do a lot for our children. And I want to remind you that this is an opportunity for you to also start thinking about your own process and your own journey. So I will see you on Instagram. Join the Facebook group, All About Audiology podcast. And I will see you next week talking about emotions. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.